intrusion threat. It's a threat during confrontations, civil unrest, etc. And how to safeguard the port during these times. Now, how to safeguard the port during a COVID-19 or any other pandemic is not within that list. And therefore, it is challenging for us to, every day that goes by, we write something new, because this is lessons learned. We've actually have done a video conference with the ports of Shanghai. We exchanged information on what were the best procedures, and approximately 90% to 95% of their procedures and our procedures were exactly the same. We've done also a video conference with the GCC cluster as part of the Arab Seaports Federation, and that was a couple of days ago. And again, 90 to 95% of all what we have done collectively is exactly the same. And therefore, going back, there isn't any protocol to implement, and that's why you have countries that are so advanced in the world, in technology, in military strength, are now suffering from this pandemic. In Kuwait, it has been contained early because the bells rang earlier than probably the other countries in Europe. We had Iran with the outbreak, and therefore we had to take our precautions immediately. I did not wait for any national law. I had to immediately close down Doha port, because Doha port, which is the smallest port, part of the three ports we have in Kuwait, which are Sheikh port, Shuaibah port, and Doha port. Doha is the smallest. It receives the small dhows and small boats coming in, 80% coming from Iran and about approximately 20% coming from Iraq, with goods manufactured there, usually the traditional goods, fruits and vegetables. As you know, Iran is very famous for pistachio, very famous for their saffron, and we get lots of Iranian carpet as well. So many of those things, and similar to Doha port, is spread all across the GCC. And we had to close that immediately. We had to put in new protocols to receive the larger ships into Kuwait. We had to call in the Ministry of Health so that their medical staff can go, and in the anchorage area, before that ship berths into any of our two main ports, Sheikh and Shuaibah, the medical staff boards the ship, checks the temperature of all the ship crew, and then the port pilot aboards that ship, and there is the social distancing within the ship. The medical staff makes sure that the ship crew have their masks, the gloves, and everything, all the PPE ready. We just received actually a circular from the IMO with regards to the PPE. We've implemented that 3 months early. So we also thank them for their circular, but we've already implemented that early. The other challenges we are facing is with regards to our employees. So basically, to divide the challenges, we have challenges from the shipping lines. We're facing challenges from our employees within the Kuwait Port Authority. And the third part of our challenge are the challenges we are having from the contractors working in the port and the stevedores. So the first challenge, as I told you, is with the shipping lines, and this is the solution that we have made. and it is a solution that other GCC states were not implementing, but will implement accordingly, either by their own internal teams to check the temperature or by their ministries of health, etc. The second issue is with our employees. With regards to our employees, we've cut down the employment attendance rate to 30%. So at every one time, there's only 30%. Social distancing, of course, wearing the gloves and masks all the time. I just took off my mask, which is actually right there, just for the webinar. And we've released orders and circulars so that any employee above 60 would stay at home and his salary would be fully paid. Any pregnant woman, any woman that have just given birth, and any person who have terminal illnesses. And these three categories, we've told them at the beginning to stay at home. So we've managed to do that. The other thing we have done is separated our employees within shifts, so the employees never see each other. We've also implemented video conference programs such as Zoom, the one we're using now, as well as Microsoft Teams for any of our committee meetings. We've cut down on any one-to-one meetings, even if there is a social distancing procedure taking place of the 1.5 meters or 2 meters, even if it's 5 meters. The third issue is the contractors and the stevedores. We've informed the stevedores to completely separate their employees so that they are not staying in any residence with any other company. This is number one. Number two, we informed all the contractors to try to, as much as possible, for them to move inside certain buildings within the two main ports, Sheikh and Shuaibah, and we managed to do that. And the third thing is the regular check of their temperature and the random check of the swabs, which is the nose swab, as everyone, it's the famous nose swab that everyone wants to avoid, which we are doing randomly. And until now, we had people with high temperature, but with their results until now is negative. So thank God, we've kept the COVID-19 outside the port gates until now. The cases in Kuwait, we have in total that have been actually diagnosed with the COVID-19 until today at around 14,000. But we have about, give and take, 4,000 that also have been cured from the COVID-19, so that we have about 10,000 until now that are being treated. So, this pandemic and not with the international as well. We've taken also procedures with the shipping lines to know where they've been within the last ports and within the last, let's say, 10 ports and within the last 30 days. We've also taken into consideration the situation with the countries where those ships are coming from, especially the affected countries. And we found out that most of the ship crew have not aborted those ships within those 30 days. And the shipping lines themselves have also done their work in providing all the necessary PPE equipment, in providing safety rules and regulations for their crew. So it's a collective procedure that everyone is taking into consideration. What we've also done, we've purchased that are required to test the temperatures. We've, of course, purchased all the PPEs, the N95 masks, surgical masks for the staffers like me, the N95 for the first liners, as well as the helmet that can detect the body heat and the facial heat within a distance of approximately 5 to 7 meters. I've donated those to the Kuwait Port Authority and to other military and security establishments. We've also purchased 6 trucks for disinfecting trucks. We're the first in the Middle East to do that as the Kuwait Port Authority, so that we can disinfect the containers as they come. We can disinfect the different buildings within the port. As you know, the ports are very large, 3 to 4 million square meters, and it's a mini city, and we need those big trucks. We're also, we made a team as well, and that team is a response team that goes and disinfects the different buildings within the Kuwait Port Authority. There were the buildings of the KPA itself, or the buildings of the other sectors working within the port, such as the port security, part of the Ministry of Interior, the of course the customs, the Ministry of Health, offices, etc. We've also done part of our social responsibility. We've went to the different supermarkets, because they're probably the only retail opening at this moment, the supermarkets and the pharmacies, as part of the total lockdown, the 20-day total lockdown in Kuwait. And we've disinfected our team about, until now, 8 supermarkets. Yesterday, they went to the Coast Guard base, and they've done a full disinfection of the Coast Guard base. So we also have done, the CSR, the corporate social responsibility towards the community and other entities, with this regard. And if we have people, being affected in the future, we cannot control it. With all the procedures that we have made, there's nothing in our hands, due to the fact that it is something we cannot smell, we cannot see, we cannot hear, and it is silent. And therefore, there's nothing in our hand with all what we have done, with all the gadgets that we have purchased, the temperature checks, etc. If it happens, it's the will of God. We will take the procedures of we've made procedures in case we had people affected with the coronavirus with the Ministry of Health. So we've done those procedures as well. And if it happens, we will implement those procedures, and it's nothing in our hand to do or to prevent. Going into the second part of the question, which is what's next? And what's next for us actually started yesterday. We signed a joint memorandum of understanding with our counterparts, the Public Authority for Industry. So the Kuwait Ports Authority and the Public Authority for Industry has signed a memorandum of agreement, and this memorandum of understanding. And this memorandum of understanding is to build the first industrial port in Kuwait that would, attract international industries into the country. It will promote local industries. We have to depend ourselves now more and more on industries, and a lot of those industries depend on having industrial type berths, and therefore we started yesterday with that. we are also now restructuring the KPA internally. We have plans to also go abroad and compete in the areas best in terms of port operation, because we are operating our ports ourselves and not using an international port operator, as well as logistic cities and entertainment berths for the luxury yachts with malls and hotels. And we have two going to be built in Kuwait. One of them is called Marasi Al-Fantas, and it is $1 billion project with 2,000 berths and a mall, and it's a beautiful, beautiful project that we will be this is the future for us. We've also done a study for our 30-year future with regards to ports and the maritime industry within Kuwait, and how it is going to be affecting the local and regional economy. That this study has been completed with one of the international companies, consultancy companies. So we're moving slowly but surely with all those plans, and hopefully we will see one day the flags of the KPA flying in Europe or in Africa, operating some ports and logistics cities, and probably free zones as well. This is all what I have to say, and I will give it back to Mr. Steve.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency Sheikh Yousef. It's always very interesting, I think, to hear firsthand how somebody is dealing with this this terrible disease. Just from a UK perspective, it would be interesting for me if you could just add to that by explaining whether or not you've had any difficulties in getting protective clothing for the relevant staff that you have, or whether that's something that's been relatively easy in Kuwait.
With regards to the equipment, we've purchased over 5,000 masks in January, so that they were readily available. And then in February, I told my staff, my procurement staff, to purchase another 40,000, PPEs and face shields and the overalls as well, because now our port pilots have to wear the shield, have to wear the overalls. So we've purchased those early. Because we've purchased all those early, other agencies have had difficulty, so we're giving out the Ministry of Interior, port security. We're also giving other government agencies within those ports, within the port gates. So we've done a good job in taking the initiative early, for a very important reason. I come from a military background, and operational readiness in the military is something very essential and very important.
No, absolutely. Maybe you could have a word with our Prime Minister. Maybe he should have acted in a similar vein. But anyway, let's not get talking about politics. Thank you very much for your insightful comments, and I'm sure that there'll be some further comments at the end once we've heard from Omar and Gagan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.